Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Career Brand Story, a podcast that provides expert career coaching every week. I'm Jeremy Tudor, and on today's show, we're going to take a look at how you can identify your why. We will do this by understanding what the key motivators are for all of us and how tapping into our driving forces can lead to more job satisfaction. In a world that we wake up to every day feeling chaotic, unseen, and unsafe, I can't think of any more important time than right now to understand your purpose, your why in life. I want to welcome back Jeb Graff, commercial photographer and creative consultant, and McKay Leslie, market growth leader here at Career Brand Story. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks again for letting me be a part of this podcast. I really enjoy it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I love when the three of us get to chat on here, and I'm glad to be back with y'all.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation with you guys. And I'm going to actually just start off with a question to both of you. Do either one of you know your why?
I have no freaking clue. As soon as I saw the script for this and I saw that question, do you know your why? I thought, God, I hope he doesn't ask me if I know my why.
I think based on my DISC assessment that I did with you, Jeremy, I'm motivated by altruism, but I don't know if that can be my why. But I think we're going to learn a little bit about that on this podcast.
Okay. Was that like one of your top primary driving forces in your report?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be interesting as we dive into this a little bit deeper. Well, if you've ever found yourself low on energy, like after completing a task at work, do you guys do that?
Yep.
Like you're just like, oh my gosh, like there's certain things that I will start that I just immediately want to fall asleep trying to do. I will not admit what that is because it might concern our listeners. But there are certain tasks where I'm just like the energy just immediately bottoms out. Or have you ever been so energized even after it's been a long day of working on a project that you enjoyed?
Yes, literally all this morning I was working on a project for one of our clients and I could bounce off the walls. I liked that particular kind of work so much.
Yeah. So the first scenario may be playing against your motivators, while the second complements your key motivators. So growing up, my mom always told me that you should do the task that you least want to do first. So you kind of get out of the way, the hard work first, and then you can focus on the more fun tasks that you want to do. And what she was really saying is do the things that are going to be least motivating to you so that you get them done, so that when you get to the fun things, you're going to feel more motivated to get those things done. And I remember my family, like when Labor Day comes around, my parents were the type that actually took that as a serious holiday, literally, that it meant that we were supposed to like do some type of work. It wasn't like a holiday. So
That's
everyone
funny.
else in the neighborhood, like all the kids and stuff would be playing. And then there would be us working, so doing some kind of house project. And I remember on this one particular Labor Day, we had this fence and it was my job to paint the fence. And I thought it was like the worst task ever. And it took me literally all day to do it because I was so unmotivated to paint all the different fence posts that went along the way. So it's just really simple and it makes sense that you're going to feel less motivated on the things that you don't like to do. You're going to feel more motivated, even energized by the things that you really love. Simon Sinek is popularized the movement of understanding your why. There's very few people or companies that can clearly articulate why they do what they do. I will say that that is true with individuals as well, that, we take jobs, we do things, and yet we can look at the statistics and it's as high as 80% of people in the workforce feel unsatisfied in their job. Well, why is that? Well, again, it's more focused on the results of maybe bringing home a paycheck, or if you're a company, it's more focused on the profitability of the company. But all that is a result. Why is all about our purpose. Why does your company exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? And so to understand why we do what we do, we have to dive below the surface so we can illuminate and amplify a person's motivating factors. So the illustration works really well if you think about the iceberg illustration, right? If we see an iceberg, we can see the top of the iceberg. We understand that there is an iceberg in front of us, right? But what we don't know is really how big that iceberg is and what is motivating it underneath the surface to continue moving forward, and what creates that total iceberg. And that's true of what really is about our motivators. Motivators can be referred to as the aspects of life that you're passionate about, things that you perceive as important, or the thoughts that provide you with purpose and direction in life. So some people live their entire lives and they never asked, to identify what really truly drives them. You could work with a person for years and not be able to identify their true motivators. And why is that? Because our motivators are tucked away in this very discrete part of our brain that we have difficulty accessing.
And I think it might be even like a privileged thing to be able to step back and think, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because a lot of people, they're doing their work, they don't have a choice. So I think that even though the original idea, it might seem privileged to say, what drives me? What do I want to do? It really can be beneficial to everyone to think about, these are the things that drive me. These are the things that drain me, and then structure your life that way, because everyone across the board is going to have tasks or responsibilities that drive them and others that drain them.
Well, we all do jobs that we don't necessarily love. And I know that sounds counterintuitive when, our mission statement is thrive in your life and do what you love. But there are times where we all will find ourselves doing something maybe that we don't love, but we can still find ways to be motivated in being able to do that job and to do it better and well. And it will either create more job satisfaction in that job, and or it may lead us to the place of the job that we actually love to be able to do, right?
Yeah.
So motivation is beneath the surface of observable behavior. And so when you understand what it is that motivates you, now you're really starting to understand your why. And one other thing I'll say out of this is that sometimes your why may also be outside of your job, right? Not all the time is our purpose, wrapped up in our 9-to-5 job. It's nice when it is. It's convenient in some ways when it is, but it's not always wrapped up into that. And so it's, I think, important for everyone. Doesn't matter what job you're doing, it comes down to really understanding your purpose. So many people, they feel stuck in their jobs because, again, I'm convinced they've never stopped to ask why they're doing what they're doing. Am I working this 9-to-5 because it pays the bills, it feeds my family, it takes care of me so that I can go do this thing that I love over here, which maybe is pottery on the weekends, or maybe is going and reading to school children, an after school program, whatever that is. Or am I doing this why? Because this work really excites me. It's meaningful work. Or am I doing this because, now I understand this isn't really fit with where I need to be in my vocation, and I could really be doing something different that fits better with my vocation. So typically companies hire based on skill sets, how we recruit, right? We look for the hard skill sets, and 9 out of 10 times those behaviors will match up to the job. But what you'll find is that people who have the right skill set and the behaviors, they can still have job dissatisfaction if they're not really tapping into what motivates them. And so when you understand what drives you or what you find motivating, you will begin to understand your feelings towards other people and situations. And then you can apply these newfound awareness to avoid potential conflict and achieve your goals. So we also talk about DISC, and those are just behavioral factors, and they help us observe differences with one another and communicate better. But it's our motivators that help provide insight into why we connect or not with tasks and other people and ideas. Mm-hmm. And they'll expose why we do what we do, what gets us excited, what gets us up out of bed in the morning, and what really keeps us engaged.
Do you have questions about wills, trusts, probate, elder law, divorce, or other legal issues? The law and legal system can be confusing and overwhelming when you're facing it alone. That's why 6-8 Legal Group PLLC and founding attorney Mark Garland are here to help. Our unique approach seeks to improve access to legal services by allowing you to select the level of legal assistance that fits your needs and budget. Sometimes that means we provide full service representation, handling everything from start to finish. Other times, it means we provide advice and coaching as you represent yourself. Ultimately, our goal is to craft creative, competent, compassionate solutions for your legal problems. We keep our caseload intentionally small so that you receive the personal attention you deserve. After all, it's not just another legal problem, it's your life. Check us out at 68legal.com. That's numerals 68legal.com.
Hi everyone, my name's Abby and I'm a social media marketer at Tudor LLC. A lot of us are working from home right now, so we want to bring you some tips that will help make that a little more manageable. By now, everyone knows that you should get up on time, get out of your pajamas, and create a space in your home for just working from home. But one creative thing you could do is use the time you previously used to commute for professional development. You might use this time to work on your career direction plan, to read that professional development book that has been gathering dust on your nightstand, or to reconnect with a mentor. Whatever you choose to do with your old commute time, remember to prioritize yourself and your career direction for these few minutes every day. You will be surprised how much you can get done in the long run if you commit to a little bit of growth every day.
All right, so there are 6 motivators for all of us. And then we have these driving forces that kind of sit on the outside of these motivators. So the 6 motivators that all of us are motivated in are knowledge, utility, surroundings, others, power, and methodologies. All right. And then these driving forces, there's like 2 on either side. We might lean more one direction than the other when it comes to the motivator of knowledge. And so there's some keywords here that I want to kind of give to you. So when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about is how we're motivated to obtain truth. And so there are some people who are going to be lean more on the intellectual side, that they are driven by opportunities to learn, acquire knowledge, and discover of truth. So working in companies that allow them to go have opportunities to learn, whether that's through like a conference, online learning, continued growth, and then they can bring that into their work, into the projects, that's going to be a high motivator for them. On the other side of that is instinctive. And there are people who are driven by utilizing their past experiences, intuition, and seeking specific knowledge when it's necessary. But they may walk into something and say, you know what, I've done this in the past and therefore I can do it in the future. And they're really motivated by that. They're not going to take that time to necessarily go seek out the knowledge unless it's really a need. They want to get right into the project and start working on it. Jeb and McKay, do you guys know which side of that you lean more on?
Yeah, actually, I went and pulled up my DISC assessment packet, and I am 85 on the intellectual side.
Okay.
I am quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I've got 57 instinctive. I'm a gut person, which is hilarious because I'm in graduate school. So you would think I would have a lot of intellectual, but apparently not.
Well,
yeah.
I would really be interested to take the assessment again, see where I fall, which I don't know. In your experience, Jeremy, does it change much, or is this like a baked in thing, like your behavioral tendencies are baked in?
No, I think your driving forces can shift some, depending on maybe season of life and where you're at. There's some theories that, it's baked in, right? This is how you're born and stuff. But, I think there's a possibility of some shifting depending on where you're at in your life as well.
Jeremy, what's yours for knowledge?
I'm on the intellectual side. So I prefer to dive in, research, and learn things that, I can bring back into the job. And this one too, I want to be really careful about, just because, some people are driven on the intellectual side and instinctive. It makes it sound like one is smarter than the other. And that is the complete wrong way to take this. It is simply just in a way that we would go to be motivated to acquire knowledge.
Right.
So, and what kind of, and how we would approach that. So McKay, you can be in grad school, but you might tend to really dive more into, the projects. You're going to take a different approach to how you're motivated on a project, and might look at more of an intuitive way of approaching that versus going and researching it before you dived into it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that one kind of plays out. Then we have utility. So utility is really how we kind of use our resources, like around time, money, energy. So the two kind of driving forces, keywords to remember, is that you have those who are resourceful. So they're driven by practical results. They want to maximize both efficiency and return on their investments of time, talent, energy, and resources. And then you have people who are selfless, people who are driven by completing a task for the greater good with little expectation of return. So which side do you guys land on that one?
I am unfortunately 88 on the selfless end of things.
Okay.
I will pay for my friend's food when I have negative dollars in my bank account. It's not the healthiest thing.
All right.
Yeah, we're in alignment on that, McKay. I am 71 on the selfless side.
What are you, Jeremy?
I am all the way on the resourceful side. Yeah. So, and so again, this is another one that sometimes I find people kind of take kind of hard if they're only on the resourceful side and they're not on the selfless side, because they're like, well, what am I, selfish? And that, nope, doesn't mean that at all. So an illustration that I use all the time around this is, my wife, Christy, is on the selfless side. So we may see a homeless person on the street. Her response is that, she's motivated to give them something without any expectation of personal return. So a matter of fact, today we typically have like crackers, like a snack pack or something in our car, so that if we see a homeless person, we can give that to them right then and there, and it kind of meets their needs. I look at that same person and I think, well, what are the opportunities that I could work with a person that is in that type of need and really actually help them get a job? And I don't mean that facetious in any way. Hopefully people understand. I career coach, and I'm always thinking about how do we get people into, jobs that they can really thrive and that it be, something life-giving to them. Mm-hmm. Are either one of those responses wrong? No, not at all. They're both actually needed, but they're needed at different phases, right, within that person's life to be able to help the total whole person, right? But my wife and I would be motivated in how we might go work at a homeless center, and what kind of things and projects we would get involved in might differ because of how we're motivated. Or it also means if we're meeting at the same table, we have different motivating factors for why we're sitting at that table and what's bringing us there. Another illustration I use with this is kind of a hot button issue, but it's around immigration. Does any one of us think that there shouldn't be a compassionate response for people who come across the border? Well, sure. We absolutely understand that there are real needs that are going on right there. But do we not agree that there's also a resourceful side of that we need to figure out how to integrate those people who come across the border in a way that allows them to become, contributing citizens? Well, of course, we can all agree on that too. But we've got two very different responses, two very different reasons why people would be motivated to come at the table. So you can kind of see quickly how motivators can help us start to sense about what kind of projects and things we want to be involved in. It also even helps us to start understanding other people and why they might be at the table with us and what's really driving them to be a part of a project or a part of the work as well.
Yeah, because I think it's a really easy thing to assume that everyone else is sitting at that table for the same reasons that you are. And that's not true, and this is a really helpful insight, especially on a team, to know where everybody's coming from.
Yeah. And if you think about it on a team, you were just talking about a project that you were working with one of our clients and, where you might take a more selfless approach of what you're doing with them. I'm sitting there thinking about also our investment on it and how do we maximize that? Both are needed for that project, right? As you go along. The third motivator is surroundings. Surroundings has everything to do about our environment. And so there are those who are on the harmonious side. So they're driven by the experience, the subjective viewpoints, and balance in their surroundings. It really gets down to the aesthetics of the place. And then there are others who are maybe on the other side of being objective. So they're driven by the functionality and the objectivity of their surroundings. So again, my wife and I are a little bit more opposite on this one. So as we moved into our new office, like she does not want fluorescent lighting in our office. So she is going through and getting rid of all fluorescent lighting, and she will not work in a room with fluorescent lighting. Why? Because she's on that harmonious side. Who she works with, the environment when she works is really, really important, where, as long as I have the tools to do the job, I can pretty much sit in the environment and get the jobs done.
Where are you with this, Jeb?
I am on 62% on the harmonious side. Personally.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, that you bring up the fluorescent lights, because I would normally 100% agree with Christy on that. But in my studio, I had to at least make sure that if I'm going to have fluorescent lights, they're all going to be daylight balanced, because all of my strobes and all of my photography equipment is daylight balanced. But yeah, those things got to go, man. Turn those off.
Yeah. And Jeb and I used to work in the same kind of studio space and offices. And so I don't know what time period. I don't know if it was 3 months or 6 months, but there would be throughout the year, there would be times where all of a sudden you'd see Jeb completely rearranging the space. Right. And that's the harmonious side, that you're motivated by kind of like what's working for me, and what's not. Yeah.
I'm the same way. So I'm 43 on the objective and then 31 on the harmonious. So both are of value to me, but I find myself rearranging my house all the time for both aesthetic and for function, just depending on if something's changed. Like, for instance, when COVID happened and we went online, I completely rearranged my house so I could have a nice workspace, because I needed it to be functional and I needed it to be beautiful.
Yeah. So some of these times there's with these driving forces. So there's a total of 12 driving forces. There's going to be your top 4. There's going to be some that you feel really strong about. And then there's going to be these other ones that are situational, right? And, it may just depend on the situation. And then there's ones that you're just probably completely indifferent about. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't come in play at all to how it motivates you. So the fourth motivator is others, how we interact and how we work with other people. This is kind of the social motivator. And so there are people who are more altruistic. They are driven to assist others for the satisfaction of simply being helpful and supportive. And then there is others who lean more on the intentional side of this motivator, and they are driven to assist others for a specific purpose, not just for the sake of being helpful or supportive. So where do y'all land on this one?
I am at 53 altruistic and 28 intentional. And I'm going to want some more clarification about this motivator.
All right. What about you, McKay?
I'm at 78 altruistic and then only 6 intentional.
Right. I'm sure you guess where I land on this one, right?
I would guess like 100 intentional.
Yeah. So again, this is very similar to the selfish and resourceful driving forces under utility motivator.
Selfless. Let's say selfless.
Oh, selfless. See, I did it. I even said selfish because that's what clients feel like after they get to this others and social ones. They're like, I'm so selfish. Yeah, selfless and resourceful under the utility motivators. So, so again, when we're working with other people, we may be more motivated, and there's just opportunities where we can just simply be helpful. We can be supportive, and we just help for the sake of helping. Where on the intentional side, there's going to be, a purpose. There's some intentional reason why I'm helping that person. I'm not just going to go simply help the person to help them. Does that make sense?
Well, when you put it that way.
Can you give a more charitable definition to the intentional side?
Oh boy. This one's, I was thinking of the last illustration because I just talked to a client about this on the phone, and they were in retail. And so I was talking to them about, Shelly in the shoe department may just need help restocking the shoes, right? She's just simply could just use the help. For that person on the intentional side, they're not necessarily going to just go help Shelly because she needs to get the shoes back. But let's say that Shelly was having a difficulty matching and understanding the SKU numbers into the inventory system, and it was slowing her down for being able to get the shoes restocked. The intentional person will have an intent, reason, and purpose why they can go over there and help Shelly get the job done.
Right, because they're streamlining the system and the process.
Right.
Yeah, so they're not anti-help. They're just, I help for reasons.
Yeah, so there's definitely reasons, behind that. So, I help people every day, but my intent and my purpose, again, in helping people is that, I'm motivated by it because, I love hearing back from clients when they land the interview or when they land the job that they really wanted, or they got that salary that they really negotiated really hard for, right? There's an intent and purpose. I shared a very specific information. I helped them get to that next place that they wanted to get to, versus, we've turned people away who simply just want a resume and a cover letter. Why you want that, I don't know. But, and they don't want to put any effort into it. They're not even really sure what they're going after. Like, gosh, I those are the worst type of assignments to take on, right? Because they're just not, there's no kind of return back for me on intentional. Where on the altruistic side, they may say, oh yeah, I'll help you. No problem. Absolutely. So, that can, again, kind of shift how you look at people around that you work with, the kind of projects you get involved with, right? It can motivate you differently in different ways. The fifth motivator is power. And this really taps into kind of our individualistic behaviors and drive for us. And so there are people who are on the commanding side, is the driving force keyword. And they're driven by status, recognition, and control over personal freedom. Then there's people on the collaborative side, and they are more driven by being a supportive role, contributing with little need for individual recognition. So where do you guys land on this one?
You go first this time, McKay.
I am 62 on commanding and only 22 on collaborative, which no one is surprised by.
No. What about you, Jeb?
What's surprising is I just commanded McKay to go first, but I am 58 on collaborative and 25 on commanding.
Because you wanted to collaborate. You didn't want to be taking the spotlight every time.
Mm-hmm.
I love
are you on collaborative?
Oh, no, I'm way on the commanding side.
Really? That's shocking to me.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. I think
I run my own company, McKay.
I know, but you do that with a lot of grace.
I like to be the CEO.
Yeah.
Well, right, because there's self-awareness, right? And this is what's really important, even in our motivators, is that we have to have self-awareness as a leader, right? And so, and commanding, again, I think this becomes a really strong word sometimes when we hear it as a keyword. But commanding, typically, again, people are just motivated that they want to be in a leadership role, right? They want to be at the business table and they want to be influencing business decisions, where the collaborative says, I don't necessarily have to influence and be at the business table. And if they really believe in the leader and a cause, they're even willing to support and bring about whatever the vision and the work is, of whatever those key decisions that have been made. Mm-hmm. So, again, it just depends on, how you're motivated, and why someone else might be sitting at the table, to really, again, watch. It's just important to kind of watch like why different people are sitting at the table and how they're motivated. So if you're a commanding person and you're sitting in a role that's requiring you to be collaborative, that gets into a leadership principle for me about that you have to learn to lead up, because we are not always in the lead role, but you can still be a leader. But you also don't want to be that collaborative person in the lead role, because that won't go well for you and it will create a lot of dissatisfaction for you in the long run. So a lot of people tend to want to climb the corporate ladder because, truthfully, hierarchy, is that a word? Hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of works, right? If we want more money and more status, we think like, well, I might have to take the next level. And so what you find sometimes is people who are more motivated collaboratively end up taking, a manager role or that next step leadership role. And then they're even more frustrated up there because it's not where they're supposed to be. It doesn't motivate them at all. They just thought that's what they were supposed to do. And it can get really discouraging.
And I think everyone thinks they're motivated by money, right? But like we talked about in the first segment, these are the things that actually motivate us.
Sure. And we kind of set a lot of, that's kind of how our culture and world is set up too, right? The higher position you have in the company, the more money you make. And, this is where I think companies might be smart to think about, what are you really paying for? Someone's, position, or are you paying for their knowledge?
Yeah.
And so, I think you find most commonly, like especially like in IT positions where this is true, that as an individual contributor, sometimes you can make a whole lot more money than you can as a manager, right? Because they understand we're paying for this person's knowledge in this space.
Yeah.
And the sixth motivator is methodologies. And methodologies is all about a defined system of living. And so there are some who are very motivated on a structured side. So they're driven by traditional approaches, proven methods, and a defined system for living. And then there are others on the receptive side that are driven by new ideas, methods, and opportunities that fall outside a defined system of living. And so kind of think about, there are those who have seen the wheel's been created, we don't need to change the wheel. There's others who see the wheel and go, you know what? I think we might be able to make the wheel a little better. So which one do you guys land on this one?
Mine's 51 structured and then 35 receptive. So still a little balanced.
71 receptive and 12 structured on my end.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
got to be a better wheel. Make it rounder.
Rounder and smaller, and you'll go faster. Right? Or is it the opposite?
I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I've got to do a bunch of research according to my first motivator.
That's right. And so actually, that's a really great segue, Jeb, is that when you understand these motivators and when you understand the closer you can that these motivators are together. So if you did the assessment, the closer your scores are together, but the more you can relate to these, you can actually then tap into them and kind of create your own driving force cluster, right? And so maybe the intellectual and the receptive and the collaborative are in your top, wheelhouse of what really motivates you. So now you think about, okay, what does that mean for, the work that I'm doing? Am I tapping into these motivating and driving forces on a daily basis? And if I'm not, why am I not doing that? Why am I not tapping into what's really motivating? And so then it leads to some action steps of things that maybe you need to change in your current work so that you can tap into those things. And it may also be an indication to say, well, you know what, in this current environment and in this current position, it doesn't really allow for me to tap into this. So for example, intellectual, maybe your company does not give you the opportunity to grow in those learning opportunities. There are organizations out here who are true learning organizations, and there are others who are not, right? Or maybe your position really doesn't allow for that. And you can't create that space. Now, I would argue you can always create professional development space on your own, but let's just say for whatever reason you feel like you can't in that company going forward, and that's going to be really important to you, then that's when it's really time for you to start going, okay, why am I doing this job? And maybe you need to start looking at that career transition for something that will allow you to tap into what really motivates you and drives you.
Yeah. So Jeremy, before we wrap up, I was wondering if you could just give our listeners a quick overview of the DISC and how this is only a piece of the puzzle when you're dealing with DISC. Just kind of maybe a little bit about how this ties into the entire report.
Well, so DISC, remember, is just simply our behaviors. It's just how we do what we do, right? So, our assessment and particularly looks at DISC, we look at your behaviors and we can say, okay, this is how McKay is going to do what she does, right? And I can observe it in you and I could tell you your DISC simply because it's an observable behavior. Motivators and driving forces, again, are the why of what you do. These are the things that sit below the surface that aren't observable. So again, back to that iceberg illustration, when we look at the tip of the iceberg, that's the DISC part. That's the behaviors. I see that there's an iceberg in front of me. I see the behaviors of McKay in front of me. But what I cannot see and what I cannot observe is what really motivates you, right? And it's that iceberg underneath the surface. And only by asking the right questions and by bringing those outside of your subconscious into your consciousness, can we talk about it? So, I talk about all this time about, how I need to get in shape. That's a common theme and probably a laughable joke at times because I don't necessarily do the things I need to do. But here's the reason I don't do it is because I'm not motivated. It really gets down to that. I have not motivated myself to do it. And there's a couple ways that I can get myself motivated in doing it. One, I could probably go back and figure out what really motivates me, what exercises can I do, right, that I would be more motivated to do. I also know if this is sitting in my subconsciousness, that the way to get it to my consciousness is to say it out loud, to write it out loud, and to find someone to hold me accountable that I can talk it out loud with. And only when I make those changes am I actually going to take real action to actually move forward and do the exercises that I need to do instead of being motivated at the end of the night to reward myself with apple pie. Right?
Yeah.
So this is why it's so important for us to really understand our why, and also why I think it's so hard. I don't think it's an easy answer to come up with. And sometimes people, and maybe in our day and age and marketing and stuff, we've seen a lot of things about understanding your purpose and understanding your why. And maybe we think it's supposed to be this kind of quick, easy answer. And I don't think so. I think there's some hard work that you mentally have to put into this to really come up with your why, your purpose, and actually take the action steps to move you towards your why.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Jeb McKay, since we didn't have a special guest outside of our group today.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Wow, we're not special.
Wait a minute.
Well, a normal guest? What do you want me to say here?
No, that's fair. We didn't have a special guest.
We'll
We're
accept
regulars. Yeah,
Yeah.
You guys
we're
are
regulars.
regular. You guys are regulars. So we didn't have a special guest today, but you guys are always special in my heart. I just
Thank
want you to know that right away.
Good cover. Good cover.
But we still always ask our guests this question. And so today I'm just going to pick Jeb for this one. Jeb, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I
Dun, dun,
don't
dun.
know is the best answer I can give, because there's a lot of things that I would like to be, but are not, goals that I'm actually setting. Like I would love to be a rally car driver, but that's like, I turned 40 this year. I'm not going to be a rally car driver. It's not happening. So I don't really know. And it's a tough question. I talk about this with my therapist. Like, I just don't know. I want to be retired is what I want to be, which may sound lazy, but there's also this controversial topic that I get on tangents about. And it really frustrates me that we have to have money to be alive. I just want to enjoy my life. In the end, above all, I want to enjoy my life. And that's why retirement seems so special to me. I think that, though, as a business owner, a small business owner, an artist, I'm going to be working for a really long time. So it's just my goal to make sure that I enjoy my work as much as I enjoy my not work. So there's my long-winded answer.
It seems like a pretty fair answer.
We'll go with it, and it'll change next week.
Yeah, keep us updated.
I will. I'm going to go buy a car.
Especially if you do early retirement. Let me know how you did that.
Yeah, I will. I think it's going to involve scratch-off tickets. I don't know. Maybe Powerball.
Living the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone, if you liked what you heard today, you can hear more every week from us by opting into our email newsletter. Simply go to jeremytudor.com to sign up today. We promise we won't spam your inbox, and we'll just send one email a week with our expert career coaching advice. If you sign up for our newsletter this month, then you're going to get our free Motivators and Driving Forces PDF, which will outline for you in document format everything that we talked about on the podcast today, the motivators and which side you might fall on. So go over to our website, jeremytudor.com, to sign up today. A little housekeeping. If you're wondering about where you can follow us, you can follow, like, comment on Facebook. Just search for Jeremy Tudor. On Instagram, we are Jeremy T. Tudor. Don't forget that extra T. And then on LinkedIn, just Jeremy Tudor as well. As you listen to the podcast, you can actually hear the episodes before we advertise them if you're a subscribed listener. So smash the subscribe button. Give us a nice rating while you're at it. You can find us on YouTube if you'd like to watch the podcast rather than listen. The YouTube. I literally said the YouTube last week.
Oh, man.
I know, it's bad. I'm a bad millennial. But if you'd like to find us on the YouTube, you can look for Jeremy Tudor or Career Brand Story, and we should pop up. So another thing that I just want to put on the radar of all of our listeners is that we currently have a question out on all of our social media channels, and we want to know what your answer to this question is. So our question to you is, what would you ask a career coach? We're going to have a Q&A session next week. And so we want to know, what would you ask if you could ask a career coach anything? And Jeremy is going to be answering our listeners' questions on our next show. So we're really excited about that. Do y'all have anything else before we sign off?
No.
Nada.
Nothing. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And as always, keep thriving.